guys, it's Laura, and today for you guys I have my June wrap up, which to be honest is pretty much my biggest wrap up in book volume that I've done so far. It's been a good month for reading, even though I spent a whole week not reading. So we'll get on with it. The first lot of books I read was the Percy Jackson series. Now I've got a review of this and I'll link that down below for you guys. But I finished The Lightning Thief the last day of May, and then the four rest of the books I read in June and love them. As I said, the review will be down below, and yeah, so that's 4 already onto my list. The next book I read this month was Bumped by Megan McCafferty. Is that right? McCafferty? I've had this book for ages. It's actually my sister's book that I kind of borrowed when she brought it because it sounded really good, and then I never got around to reading it until now. A couple of months ago I was actually going to unhaul this book, but I decided not to because I thought I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to enjoy it or not, but I'll read it to see how it goes. Now this book is about a virus that has swept the world where all people over the 18 cannot produce children, and so there is a whole commercialised world of teenagers basically giving birth to children as surrogates to give to the adults who can no longer have children. Now this is a really interesting concept, and the concept really intrigued me, and the values and the societal criticism was really interesting. As a book overall I wouldn't rate it very highly, but I did enjoy it, so I gave this one I think 3 or 4 stars out of 5, and I am planning to read the next one. I still may get rid of this book, but I did enjoy it at the same time. I'd really recommend it if you're interested in dystopias, but dystopias where you look at the role of females, because although this isn't a very strong book itself, the theories behind it are very strong, and I find it really intriguing, and you could criticise a lot of the stuff that's being said in here to modern day and the role of women, and yeah, so that was Bumped. The next book I read this month was A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Now, I went into the library recently, and I'll probably do a haul soon that will go up, but I went into the library recently and found this there. I was so glad to get this because the book is rather expensive to buy, and I really wanted to read it, and oh my god. When you guys say that this book is awesome, I should take your word for it, because I read this in probably about a day or two, and I'm in love with it. I gave this 5 stars. It's beautiful. The drawings and illustrations, although they're not kind of my style, there's some pages that I really generally love. This story is about a little boy who has a little friend that's a monster. He's kind of disguised as a tree, but his mother has cancer, and it's a story about sort of self-realisation as well as coping with the sort of life he's living at the moment, and it was told beautifully. It made me cry. Even though I knew what was going to happen, I cried. It is a very emotional book, and it was beautifully written, and I have to say I give it to Patrick Ness, who took the words, the idea from Siobhan, who died of cancer and wasn't able to write it, so let him. He took that and made it into something beautiful, and I think Siobhan will be really proud of what Patrick Ness has produced. The next book I read this month was Lois Lowry's The Giver. Now I've been hearing a lot about this, and a lot of people have read this when they were younger or read it at school. I think in our schools in England it's not a bigger thing as much as in America, but I really enjoyed this book. It's coming out as a film I think this year or next year. The dystopian world is really intriguing, and the ideas behind it are really interesting, and some of the ways in which the book is portrayed is really imaginative and lyrical and really enjoyable to read. However, the end. I gave this book 4 stars generally based on the end because I wanted more, and although it reminds me a little bit of 1984 where you're left hanging at the end, it's not as bad as 1984 because if you've read both of them, you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. I'm trying not to spoil it. I really enjoyed this book. I'd really recommend it if you're interested in dystopia. This is, I think, a middle grade book, so it is a bit younger. It was generally a good book, and I loved it and I'd really recommend it. Now, the final book this month I read, and I read it in about a day, and oh my god, this is probably, I want to say my favourite book of the month, but it's not, because I've had a very good reading month. I've enjoyed most of my books really well this month. And that was Cecilia Aharon's Where Rainbows End. Now, I've only read P.S. I Love You before this, and I read that about 2 years ago, and ever since I've read that, I've constantly been buying more Cecilia Aharon books. Not reading them, but generally thinking, P.S. I Love You is amazing. Her other books have to be amazing. And this one didn't disappoint at all. This one's about two characters, Rosie and Alex, and they're childhood best friends, and you see the journey from when they're about 7 to when they're about 50. And oh my god, I love this book. I was recommended this by someone who loves Cecilia Aharon, and this is her favourite Cecilia Aharon book. And I have to say, I don't understand why chick lit is so underrated and seen as so negative, because this book is about life in general sense. It talks to you about how life progresses and the journey of life and just happiness and love. Not all of it's happy though, I have to admit, but it's just the journey of life this book takes you through, and I'd highly recommend this one. It's about 560 pages, which seems long, but it's written in sort of an epistolary narrative with emails and letters, and although there's sometimes I wanted a bit more than that, but it worked really well in the book, and it's a quick read, and I couldn't put this down. So I'd highly recommend this, and it's just, I can't explain how much I love it. There's humour, there's laughter, there's love, there's tears. I was tearing up about 50 pages in. Throughout the whole entire book I felt very emotional. I felt very emotionally attached to the characters. I just wanted to read more at the end because I'd become so attached to the characters inside the book. So these are all the books I've read this month via The Lightning Thief, and I'm pretty proud with that, especially as I now really have to get on with uni stuff, and I just want to read more books now. I've got really into the bookish mood and I just want to read more. At present I'm actually reading Anna and the French Kiss. I'm not sure how that's going. I'm about chapter 5 or chapter 6 in, and I know everyone loves it so much, but so far I'm not finding it very particularly astounding, but I will see how it goes and let you know what I think of it. Also, as you may have noticed, none of them books on that list were the books I said I'd read on holiday. Yeah, holiday I didn't really read at all. I took all them books with me and I ended up reading none of them. I read about a chapter of Anna and the French Kiss, and that was it. And I just didn't feel like reading, and the books I wanted to read were at home anyway. That's the problem with creating a TBR for a week when you're away. I just didn't want to read any of the books I brought with me. That and the place we stayed at had the Game of Thrones box set, so we were busy watching the Game of Thrones and just busy enjoying ourselves and going out places. And to be honest, I'm not too bothered about that. So that's the end of that video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you're all well and having a good summer, or not summer, depending on what you're doing, if you're working or schooling or whatnot. And if you do like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to hear your comments.